Good afternoon, Rotarians. President Mike, thank you for the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite subjects here today. We've got a website, Shaping Alaska's Future, which goes along with this little booklet at your table. And the thing that I would refer you to in this booklet is we have what we call the effect. In other words, what is the outcome we want to achieve by doing the things we're doing with regard to analyzing ourselves and then talking about where we want to be. And we call those effects, not goals, but it's a cultural change. It's like swinging the Queen Mary around 5 or 10 degrees. You're still moving forward with the search for excellence. You're not slowing down, but you're changing on the fly those things that need to change to stay relevant with a very rapidly changing modern world, not the least of which in higher education is being led by high technology. So you can make the choice to either do nothing, which, by the way, about a third of people in higher education in a recent poll I looked at agree with, do nothing. We're getting too business-like. We need to go back to the old ways of doing business. Or 2/3 of people say, no, we've got to stay relevant, or we're going to get passed by. And we want to stay relevant, or we will get passed by. And that's really the subject. So when you look in this little booklet, what you want to look at, the effect or the outcome, seems fairly obvious and straightforward. The reason it's there is because we're not. And so what you want to look at is the issue. Look at the issue before the effect and read what we feel is not firing on 8 cylinders. And so we're trying to fix it to get to the point where we can say we're there. We just recently had a board meeting where the Lumina Foundation came in, backed by Gates. Big foundation, talked very glowingly about some of the university's accomplishments in the lower 48, talked about the University of Tennessee, how they were doing this and they were doing that and making these changes. And you know, it's nice to look and see where the best of breed is and what they're doing. And so 3 days ago, I called up and I looked across higher education in sort of the USA Today of higher education newspapers. And here's the chancellor of the system of University of Tennessee saying that they're looking at $155 million in the hole over the next few years. And so they're going back to sit down and make a plan on how they're going to get fixed and what the things they're going to do. And it reads exactly like what we're trying to do across the UA system right now. So even the best, even some of our great universities are struggling with the same kinds of things and the same economy and the same outlook on the economy as we are here. There's a lot of smart people in Alaska and they're scattered all over the place. But if you want a core where the synergy of people working together and coming up with good ideas and getting smarter because they're studying as they work, this is the place. What we want to do is make sure that our Alaska students look at one of the universities at UA as the first place they look, and then compare outside universities to what's offered here, as opposed to the other way around. I get the beak when I see Arizona State trying to poach our students here in Alaska, and then our students comparing us after they go visit Arizona State. It's not the same. And the ones that find that out too late come back to us a year later, and those numbers are going up too. Student success is our mission. I mean, you can talk all you want to about all the things that go on in a university, but the success of the students, at wherever they come in and wherever they go out, whatever their aspirations are, whatever they're trying to be, we need to get them there. And that's what it's all about. And the hard part is sometimes trying to remember that that is what it's all about, because we've got so many things that contribute to that, that sometimes it almost appears like the job itself is what we're here for rather than the outcome. And then quite often measurements are taken on the input side instead of the output side. And that's part of the transition we're making right now, is we want to be scored on our successes. The outreach meetings we held all across Alaska 3 years ago, people have told us, what are the things they'd like to see? And so here's just a smattering that are on this list. The Alaska Learning Network is a task that the state gave to us. UAS is leading it. The number of students K through 12 that can go online and improve their status as students in high school, anything we can do in that area means we're going to get a better and more successful student in the door on day one when they become freshmen in college, or they enter into one of our 2-year programs. And so reaching back into the K-12 world is a very, very important part of what's going on. We want to help the high schools to the best of our ability to get the quality of high school students up high enough where they qualify for that Alaska Performance Scholarship. That is a great scholarship opportunity. And it goes all the way down to a high school student with a 2.5 grade average. And I mean, I'll tell you what, there are a lot of students out there that need to take advantage of this scholarship, because when you combine it with our very, very low tuition, but the second or third lowest in the United States, and the low fees that we have, and then you look at the discounts and the opportunities that students have to reduce the cost of tuition, you're talking about a really good deal for students. And the Alaska Performance Scholarship and our UA Scholars program for the top 10% in the high schools really contributes to that effort. So we need to get them in the door. We need to get the Alaskan kids in the door. We need to get the Alaskan not so kids anymore who've been out in the workforce for 10 years and want to upgrade. We need to get them in the door, and we need to get them through. Comprehensive advising is a huge component to that, and the legislature has been amazingly supportive in giving us the money to hire professional advisors who can take that forlorn, lost freshman who wants to throw their hands up and quit after the first midterm exam and tell them, look, you're going to make it, you're going to do fine. You know, here's your track record. We know all about you. We know your high school record. We know what you've done. We know what you're capable of. Stay with us, and we'll stay with you every step of the way. And there's 1,000 stories out there that the advisors can handle and still keep a student's confidence up and keep them flowing through the program. Wonderful, wonderful effort, and the legislature has really helped us. Stay on track. This is just pure arithmetic. 8 semesters, 15 hours a semester, 120 hours, get your degree. Most of our degrees fall in the 120-hour category, as they do across the United States. In 4 years, you can graduate if you take 15 hours and average 15 hours. And for a long time, people have been afraid of taking 15 hours. That used to be the absolute norm, and somehow we got away from that. And now we're encouraging our students to raise their bar a little bit and come in and be ready to work, and we'll work with them. We can get them through 15 hours. It is not the end of the world. A lot of them think it is, and you'd be surprised how many come back and tell us, I didn't think I could do it, but actually it made me focus on my studies so much that the stuff that I was doing, taking 12 hours and trying to live my high school lifestyle, that all went away and I became a student. And now I'm going to graduate. And that's the kind of story we want to hear. So the collaboration between the 3 universities for student success means there's got to be lots and lots of decisions, academic decisions, administrative decisions, registrar decisions, and on and on and on. In order to do that, we formed what we call the Summit Team. And that's the 3 chancellors, the 3 provosts, who are basically the top academicians, the vice president for academic affairs and research, and myself. And we address only those things that seem to make sense if we did them across the entire university system. Otherwise, the chancellors and the provosts work vertically in each of those 3 universities. And they have a lot of prerogatives. It's just that not everything is optimized unless you can actually do it across the system. And so we created this leadership team. And what we do is we state the intent to do something system-wide, and then we turn it back over to our faculty and our staff. It's called governance. It means you get buy-in across the system from the faculty, from the staff. When the decision is made, then we move forward. And that's the way governance is supposed to work. And we have a great governance organization across our system here. But overall, the enrollment across the UA system is down probably about 5%. Now, that's tuition money. That's not good. But on the other hand, the graduation rates are at an all-time high across the UA system. And UAF is leading the way. The UA system is at about 31%. UAF is all the way up to 42.5%, which is approaching the national norm for a university of our category. High demand degrees are up 24% since 2009. And I'll give you an example of a course we started not too long ago in 2011 called Homeland Security and Emergency Management. This is exactly as it sounds. First responders getting an actual degree in their business. So you could take a fireman, for example, and plug him into this course, and he gets credit for hours and then moves into a bachelor's degree course. The course started in 2011, 45 total credit hours in 2011. There were a lot of people who said, well, we don't need this course. I mean, nobody's going to come to it. We're currently enrolled at 624 as of last year, 624 credit hours in that one course alone. So there are some courses out there, some very, very popular courses that are needed by the state, and there are students that are stepping up to those courses. And they don't all have to come from within Alaska for a course like that, and of course if we're competitive online, that's even better. The University of Alaska Fairbanks retention. The retention is a freshman who comes back as a first semester sophomore, about 80%. That's really saying something compared to years past. That's wonderful. Now, can we get that number up higher? Now, if you're Harvard or Yale, it's a little easier. It's a little tougher for us, but the answer is yes, but the answer is that's a number to be proud of. So there's a lot of people within the system and within UAF that are doing their jobs exactly right. I mentioned e-learning. We've got about 125 programs now across the system that you can sign on to and do e-learning. That's a very large growth over the last 4 or 5 years. Minority grads over the last 5 years are up 17% for BAs and 8% for master's degrees. UAF, with 31% of the UA population, actually receives 40% of the Alaska Performance Scholars and 38% of the UA Scholars, which are really the top line students in the UA system. So UAF is doing very, very well, not only recruiting, but teaching some great students. One of the toughest jobs we've got right now is trying to figure out how to get more higher quality Alaska teachers circled back into the system. When you think about it, when we graduate people, they shotgun out to the world and they go all over the place, but teachers, 60% of them circle back right into us again in Alaska. They'll come out of high school wanting to be a teacher, they'll go into college, they'll become a teacher, and then they circle right back into teaching the same kids and teaching the same kids that want to be teachers. And so there's a loop there that's not quite like any other of the majors. The problem is right now in Alaska, 60 to 70% of our hires every year are coming from outside. We are simply not producing Alaskan teachers, particularly rural Alaskan teachers, particularly science, technology, engineering, math, secondary teachers, or even primary school teachers. The STEM world and the rural world is one of the toughest problems we've got in order to get up to where we want to go. And so we've got a number of organizations and efforts underway to try to work our teacher program. The Mentor Project is one of them that nationwide, when you put a master teacher in with a brand new first-year teacher, the data suggests that a first-year teacher can teach to the testing level of the students that is normally found with a third or fourth-year teacher. If you have a teacher mentor with that first-year teacher, you can get that first-year teacher scores up. And so the mentor program is paying off in Alaska because we're seeing that working here. If a student's ready for college work in high school, why not let them? And so we've got 3,500 students that are taking college courses in Alaska with the potential for a lot more to do that. And so we're working very hard to expand dual credit. We have 54 independent school districts, and the operative word is independent. And so when you go out with an idea like this, you've got to sell it 54 times or have some sort of an organization that brings them together and get a consolidated decision out of them. And that's the kind of work we're doing right now with the State Board of Education. And to the credit of our board, we've met with them now on 2 occasions, board to board, that had never been done before. And the initiatives that are coming out of those meetings are now flowing back and being approved. The simple message that we're saying is, when you graduate, you need to be ready. Not just graduate, but you need to be ready to take 2 choices. One, go into the workforce and be able to jump into an apprentice program or jump into a program that's going to tax you to be able to read, write, understand graphs, understand dials and gears and all the kinds of things that you're going to have to understand. Or 2, pass your freshman courses. And if you're not ready to do one or the other, then what were 12 years for? And I think if you just keep it simple and look at it in that way, then the high school and the university can work that problem and work it very well. The Consolidated Alaska Mining Initiative, we picked up about 3 years ago the idea that, this is an area where there's a lot of our labor force, and this is an area that's going to grow in Alaska, and we need to be involved. Because there's a lot of education, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of workforce training that needs to go into this particular career field. We want people to be work ready as much as possible when we train them and then turn them loose. We're getting some support. It's always nice to get an $8 million grant. That was a UAF, Mineral Industry Research Lab, a milling simulator, the only one in the world like it's postulated to be. And we can thank our partners in that, Hecla, Sumitomo, Coeur, Kinross, and the Department of Labor, all working toward that. And sharing that money is UAS and Prince William Sound. And the other thing I think it's important to mention is that these are managed outcomes. You don't just get $8 million because somebody in the federal government decided that they liked Alaska and had a good fishing vacation. You've got to get a bunch of people who have to sit down and write a very convincing and compelling grant request and then send it in and compete with universities all over this country. And given the fact that there's about 4,000 colleges and universities, if you just take the top ones and you come in with a large grant like this, you got to realize we're doing something right. We've got great people working for us. Delta Mine Training Center, we're partnering with UConn. We've put 2 classes through there. I went to the first graduation 800 feet underground. That's an interesting classroom. It's a working mine. You go sit in a simulator like you would if you were going to do, like I did in the F-16, and you learn how to drive the machines up and down inside the corridors of the mine, the same machines that you're really going to work on. You're drilling in the rock, you're putting up all the supports. I mean, they're doing all that. Then they graduate. These people are getting hired the day they graduate. They're going straight to work without the need for extensive training in what we call work ready. I keep hearing from people like the FAA and others that said, you know, the University of Alaska, you are the gold standard for this research in remotely piloted vehicles. So when the FAA decided to put 6 regions together to do research on how to use these in the commercial airspace of the United States, it was no surprise that UAF was picked as one of the 6. We just had a meeting in Anchorage a week or so ago. There were about 200 attendees. I went to that meeting 2 years ago. Nobody in that meeting wants to fly these things. It's not for pilots. Everybody wants the data that can come out of these things. Because when they go around collecting data in many different spectrum, not just visual data, but lots of different things that they can do, there's somebody on the ground that wants this information to be able to do their job better, safer, faster, cheaper, or whatever. In other words, the economic potential in Alaska for startup companies to use these and use the university to research better ways of doing it is extraordinary. Again, the legislature, tremendously supportive in this area. They gave us $5 million, which kicked off the Center of Excellence that is currently being operated at UAF. And we are in competition with several other universities in the consortium to become an FAA United States Center of Excellence. By the way, there's going to be degrees in this, there's going to be workforce training, there's going to be operator training, this is going to bring money to Alaska. R&D, I think everybody loves the excitement of R&D. I'll just impress you with a couple of numbers. I think within the last 2 weeks, we've picked up about $41.8 million at UAF alone for research. Again, didn't happen, it didn't drop out of the sky. They went after it and they got it and they competed with some of the very, very best. We're looking at licensing, disclosures or inventions, and then licensing an invention, getting a patent for an invention, starting up a new company. 2011 we had 6, 2014 we had 45 disclosures, 47 licenses, and 2 startup companies already just out of UAF since 2011. This chart right here basically says that of all the countries that are listed down there and all the organizations listed down there that write about or comment, do research, report on Arctic topics, we are #1 in the world in the yellow bar right there in terms of UAF. We are the stewards of not only the state's money, but money that is donated to the university by very generous people. Alumni donations are up 100% over the last 5 years. Total private giving, $23 million in the past year, up 32%. Donations like Joe Usabelli and Peggy Shoemaker, the $1 million for the Museum of the North that was just recently announced. Those are the things that supplement and strengthen, I think, the university system, and particularly the University of Alaska. These issues about the respect and treating each other right on the campuses, and sexual violence and everything that comes under that category, that is a national issue of highest priority, and believe me, University of Alaska Fairbanks and the UA system is taking that very, very seriously. The Office of Civil Rights from the Department of Education is here now visiting us and looking at our program. Initial indications are, I think we showed them a whole lot more than they expected to see, and they're pleased. The final slide, changes and challenges. FY16, I couldn't find a word to put in there because so many people are going to put a different word in there. We don't know what it's going to be. You know, the budget last year, the board asked for $393 million for the operating expenses of the university system. They got $375 million out of that 393, and we don't know what 16 is going to look like. That was 15. We don't know what 16 is going to look like. But you know what's a more interesting question? What are we going to be like in 10 years? What should the University of Alaska system, University of Alaska Fairbanks, Anchorage, Juneau, what do we need to look like in 10 years? Do we need to continue struggling with all these issues? Or is there a place that we can get to, a model that we can get to, a sustainable model? And that is the challenge for the board and the challenge of the leadership. That's really the responsibility and the right of the board and the leadership to step up and try to figure that out and then further that across the communities of Alaska. We put out about $1 billion in economic activity annually. For Fairbanks, that's about $55 million that comes into the community, directly into the community. And that's a pretty good chunk. And Fairbanks is the highest. And then our students, of course, they're out there spending their dollars as well. So the last chart here is the Sekuliak, the new research ship that's headed this way. It was reported that they delayed a day in the Panama Canal coming from the Atlantic side. They came out of St. Lawrence Seaway down the coast through the Panama Canal, came out into the Pacific. They had a day delay in the Panama Canal due to fog. And now they're in Hawaii, and it was just reported they've got a 3-week delay due to sun.
They know where they're going, don't they?
I would just like to, again, compliment this man on my left here. Brian Rogers, as the Chancellor, is doing an amazing job up here. Brian is not only just the Chancellor, but he's also become a very close friend and a guy that I can watch and learn from, because he's been around the flagpole a few times. And if you ever want to have confidence in an organization, the first place you want to look is the leadership. You want to check the leadership out and then go in and sample where the footprints are all through the organization to see where the leader's been. I don't put many footprints out because the leaders are the chancellors that own and run those campuses. But I look where the footprints are, and believe me, Brian's are all over UAF. And so many of the numbers that I gave you here today are thanks to his staff and the work that his staff is doing for him, and he in turn, the vision that he's applying to his staff. So I think the outlook for Fairbanks and for the University of Alaska Fairbanks is just terrific, and I think that's really what you wanted to hear from this talk. Thank you very much for your time.